The Wall Street Journal confirming that the U.S. waited to deliver a cash payment to Iran until American hostages were freed. You had a cargo plane secretly carrying $400 million worth of foreign currency that waited in Geneva until receiving information that the American prisoners took off safely on a separate plane from Tehran. You know, one of the hostages told me right here on the intelligence report exclusively that he was kept waiting for some other plane. He never understood what it meant at the time. Here he is. Watch.
They told us we were going to be there for 20 minutes, but it took like hours and hours. We slept at the airport, and when I asked them why you don't let us go, because the plane was there, pilot was there, everyone was ready that we leave the country, they said we are waiting for another plane, and until that plane doesn't come, we never let you go.
Okay, and now we have learned that, in fact, the timing was such that that $400 million couldn't make itself to Iran until the plane with the hostages took off. And yet the administration insists this was not ransom. Joining me right now, Fox News strategic analyst, the author of Damned of Petersburg, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. Colonel, good to see you.
Hi, Trish. Great to see you always.
Was it ransom?
Of course it was ransom. But, you know, we always jump to the conclusion that President Obama, in cases like this, is telling an outright lie. And, you know, Trish, I think it may be a little more complicated because we underestimate the human capacity. It's in all of us for self-delusion. And I've actually found in my life, at least, no, but seriously, oftentimes...
All right, he's delusional, you're telling me. He's not really lying. He believes his own lies?
I think he does on some level. On some level, I think oftentimes, and you've seen this too, often the best educated people, academics, for instance, are the ones that are able to create a fantasy world in which, for instance, the world is a more benign place than it really is. And I think, you know, sometimes all politicians lie, but I think President Obama has really created this fantasy for himself in which he's a successful foreign policy president. But at the end of the day...
Colonel, you know, he's smarter than that. Is he that lacking in sort of self-inspection that he doesn't see what everyone else sees? I mean, I'm amazed, right? Because the administration keeps insisting this wasn't ransom, this wasn't ransom, this wasn't ransom. And yet, you know, you heard there from one of the hostages. You've seen the Wall Street Journal's phenomenal reporting on this. And certainly, if nothing else, why time it that way? Because everybody's going to assume it's ransom.
Yeah. Well, no, it was ransom, it was ransom, it was ransom. But my point is that we have a president who is really divorced from the reality the rest of us live in. And ultimately, even if it wasn't ransom, what matters isn't what we think. What matters, Trish, is what our enemies think, what the potential hostage takers think, and they see it as ransom and a really good deal. Grab an American, he or she is worth at least $100 million.
See, I mean, because there were 4 of them in this particular case.
Yeah.
So you're worried about more kidnappings? I would take it.
Well, I'm not just worried about it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. The Iranians are already charging another Iranian American. They've got at least 2 they're holding. And it's not just the Iranians. It does appear that if you give them enough money, the Iranians will at least give the hostages back. Others might not. Others might take the money and kill them anyway. And, you know, the ransom deal, again, it goes back to the media didn't sufficiently explore the rumors, deep rumors I got from the military friends that we paid a ransom for Bo Bergdahl in addition to releasing 6 hardcore Gitmo detainees to get him back. And so I think this is an administration that does fundamentally things that violate our Constitution, that violate our security interests, but I'll circle back and say again, they convince themselves they're doing good, that they're doing the right thing.
Does there need to be an investigation then into this as far as you're concerned, Colonel? Should the President, should Secretary Kerry be held accountable if in fact they, as many believe, engaged in a process that included ransom, which is against our policy?
Well, should be, yes. Will be, no, because as we saw with Mrs. Clinton in the emails, look, there are 2 sets of laws now in this
Colonel,
country.
I'm out of time, but this is exactly why people are so frustrated with politics as normal, right? Because there's no accountability. You apparently get to do whatever you want these days.
If you have the right connections.
If you have the right connections. Colonel, thank you so much. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Trish.